You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and there's a lot to get to today. An interesting baseball story to start off with, a few football stories, and maybe a hodgepodge at the end. But I gotta start with Steven Matz. According to Ken Davidoff and Mike Puma of the New York Post, the Yankees have reached out to the Mets to inquire on the availability of the Southpaw. Now, we all know that the Yankees need pitching help. I've talked about it at length on this show. And Matz is a local kid, and he's not a bad pitcher. He's not great, but he's certainly not bad. There are worse pitchers in baseball than Steven Matz. And he's a lefty, which is never bad. Except in this case. The Yankees have Montgomery and Happ. You really want to add another lefty there? And what are you going to do when Paxton comes back? Righties are going to kill you. I've said this before. In a perfect world, your rotation should be righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty. It's okay if the rotation doesn't shake out exactly like that, but you really should only have 2 lefties in your rotation. 3 is overkill. Matz just doesn't make a lot of sense for the Yankees. And supposedly, the Mets would want Andujar in that type of a deal. I'm not opposed to trading Andujar under the right circumstances. I understand that with the Yankees getting bitten by the injury bug this early, you've got to protect the depth. I get that. But if it's the right trade, the simple fact is when everyone's healthy, Andujar's going to be fighting for playing time. You have to balance the now with the then. And it does make sense to trade Andujar under the right circumstances. Now, you gotta be smart about it. You don't do it for Steven Matz. Andujar is the kind of guy who you can use for a better pitcher than Matz. All due respect to Matz, but if a guy like Yu Darvish is seriously available, he's the guy who you trade Andujar for. He's the guy who you trade Clint Frazier for. He's the guy who you trade Florial for. But when you look at it from the Mets side of things, it makes no sense. They already have guys playing out of position. They're already not a strong defensive team. Where are you playing Andujar? You're not putting him at first. You want to put him in the outfield? You think that your outfield depth is that bad that you need Andujar? You know what? It's no different than putting Dominic Smith there. No one's going to be mistaking Miguel Andujar for Roberto Clemente anytime soon. And if you put him at third, what are you doing with McNeil? What are you doing with Davis? There are too many variables here. No, it doesn't make sense. Steven Matz is not going to be a Yankee, and Miguel Andujar is not going to be a Met. Unless the Mets really blow things up and trade DeGrom, which isn't going to happen anytime soon. I was looking at the Mets contract situation, and this coming year, they don't have any big free agents. Cespedes, Lowry, Ramos, Betances, Ramos is the only guy who you wouldn't want to lose, and God only knows how Betances is going to do. The year after that is where things get dicey. Syndergaard's a free agent, Conforto's a free agent, and Matz is a free agent. There's going to come a point in time in the next 12 months where the Mets really need to think to themselves, are we going to go for this thing with this core that we have, or are we going to blow everything up? Because in 2022, they only have 2 guys under contract. DeGrom and Cano. I understand that it's 2 years down the line. And you cross that bridge when you get there, a million things can happen. I understand that. But let's look at this rationally for a minute. The Mets have an owner that is actively looking to sell. They have a GM who is aggressive, there's no question. But you really don't know how smart of a baseball mind he is. A lot of the moves that he's made has not worked. They have a manager who they don't trust. They gave him a short-term deal. God only knows how Rojas is going to do, but I'll tell you, the Mets do not trust him, as evidenced by the fact that he's on a short-term contract. And if you trade them before the season starts, you're going to get more than what you'll get for him at the trade deadline. Look at Manny Machado. The Orioles got pittance compared to what they could have gotten for him. Mark Teixeira. I'll blow up Mark Teixeira right now. I want to see exactly what he got. Yeah, the Rangers traded him to the Braves the year before his contract was set to run out. And the Rangers got Elvis Andrus, Neftali Feliz, Matt Harrison, and Jared Saltalamacchia. The Braves decided to trade him a year later. All they got for him was Steven Matz and Casey Kotchman. There's a reason you've never heard the name Steven Matz before. It's because he never played a game in the majors. The point is, at some point in the next 12 months, the Mets are going to need to make a very tough decision. Are we really going to go for this thing hard? Which they've already done. But are they going to go for it harder? Or are they going to blow everything up? If you really think that this core can contend for a World Series soon, then double down. Go all in even more. I have no problem with that. But if it doesn't work, you need to be prepared for the alternative, which is a Marlins-like fire sale. And the only guy who wouldn't be available in that case is Pete Alonso. Because Jeff McNeil, we don't think about this. Jeff McNeil is on the older side. You know how old Jeff McNeil is? He'll be 28 in April. He doesn't fit your age range. By the time that you'll be competitive after the fire sale, McNeil's already going to be in his mid-30s. Now, there's a good chance that this doesn't happen. Maybe this coming year, the Mets go crazy. And this is the year they break through, and this is the year that they win the World Series. In which case, they're not going to blow everything up. But I got news for you. That's not what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to struggle to be 500. And I think after the season is over, at those winter meetings, whoever the GM is, it may not be Brody, but whatever hierarchy is in place, that guy is going to have to think to himself, do I have the core necessary to make the playoffs? Or do I need to blow everything up? Because at those winter meetings, 12 months from then, Conforto, Matz, and Syndergaard will be free agents. It's then that tough decisions are going to have to be made. Moving over to football now, and there are a couple pretty good offensive linemen that could be available soon. According to Jenna Lane of ESPN, Cordy Glenn and Trey Turner are being shopped around. If the Bengals can't trade Glenn, he will be released. I'll start with Glenn. And if the Bengals are stupid enough to cut Cordy Glenn, then Joe Burrow needs to figure out a way to get drafted somewhere else. Pull an Eli Manning, pull a John Elway, get out of Cincinnati. Cordy Glenn, when healthy, is one of the best left tackles in all of football. You do not trade that guy or cut him when you're drafting a franchise quarterback. Look, I understand that he's had injury concerns. I get that. But when healthy, the guy's a beast. Yeah, his run blocking hasn't been as good as it once was, but his pass blocking is still great. And now you're going to just trade him or cut him? I'll tell you what, if you're Joe Douglas, yoo-hoo, over here, I'll take him. Get him back in the AFC East. And it's not like the Bengals need the cap space. For starters, they never sign anyone in free agency. That's number one. Number two, when they cut Andy Dalton or trade him, whatever they're going to do, they're going to have over $61 million in cap space. They're already at over $44 million. Why on earth would you trade him? Why on earth would you cut Glenn? It makes no sense. Keep Cordy Glenn. You need to keep Joe Burrow upright. That is your one priority. And you're going to trade the best offensive lineman that you have? Only the Bungles, man. Only the Bungles. Trey Turner is a little more interesting. For starters, if he's not going to be on the Panthers next year, it's going to be because he was traded. And I highly doubt that the Panthers would just give him away. So you'd probably get something of substance for him. I don't know what exactly you would get, but you'd get something for him. He's never been great, but he's always been pretty darn good. He's been durable. Yeah, he has some injury concerns, but mostly you can count on him. He's never played less than 700 snaps in a year. The Panthers are sort of kinda in the same boat as the Bengals, but they're thinking about trading Turner as opposed to just cutting him. So I'm not going to get on him as much there. Again, you'll get something for Turner. And they don't have the first overall pick this year. I don't know who their quarterback of the future is. Is it Kyle Allen? Is it Will Grier? It's not Cam Newton. I don't know what they're going to do. I also don't hate this for the Panthers because they are going on a crazy rebuild soon. They already lost Luke Kuechly. They already lost Greg Olsen. James Bradbury's probably going to leave soon. They're not going to bring back Dontari Poe. I don't mind them going younger and then looking to draft a guy like Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. I know that I shouldn't advocate tanking, but in this case it kind of makes sense. They already lost Kuechly. If they can't bring back Bradbury and Dontari Poe, then yeah, I really don't mind it. Quite honestly, I really don't mind the Panthers rolling out Will Grier next year. seeing if he's the answer, and if he fails, then you take Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. I really don't mind that. Moving on now to Travis Benjamin, and this is according to Ian Rappaport. Him and the Chargers are mutually parting ways. So Benjamin's contract is up, and the Chargers will not look to re-sign him. It is a new era with the Chargers. Out with the old, in with the new, especially when you look at quarterback. Because keep in mind, Phillip Rivers is going to be looking for a new home. It makes sense for the Chargers to move on from Benjamin, especially with them letting Rivers walk. They want to get younger. They don't care about contending now. They're looking to the future. And Benjamin isn't getting any younger. He's 30 years old. And he was hurt for a sizable portion of last year. He only played in 5 games. I can't begrudge the decision to let Benjamin walk. I actually kind of like it. It makes sense, considering the direction that they're headed. The biggest issue that the Chargers are going to have is identifying their quarterback of the future. I really think they're going to take Justin Herbert, and they better hope that Herbert's the answer. Now, I think that he is, but if he busts, then this is a fireable offense for Tom Telesco. You cannot let the franchise icon in Phillip Rivers walk and replace him with a bust. It will not work. You will not survive that. Now again, I think Herbert is going to work out, and I like the future of the Chargers with him, Austin Eckler, Hunter Henry, Keenan Allen, Melvin Gordon, Joey Bosa, you name it. All I'm saying is, it needs to work, because Telesco will not survive it otherwise. Alright, I will start that hodgepodge now, and it starts with a top 20 matchup between Michigan State and Penn State. Now, I've spoken about both these teams before, so I'll go through them pretty quickly. We all know how great Tom Izzo is. You don't need me to extol his virtues. Cassius Winston is one of the best players in the nation. Xavier Tillman is one of the most underrated players in the nation. He's a double-double threat whenever he walks out onto the court. And Aaron Henry, if the Spartans are going to win any game, needs to step up. He is the X factor for the Spartans in the big dance. They're also an incredibly balanced team. They're a team that can go on a big run. They just need Henry to help get them there. That's all it is. And when you look at Penn State, they're a team that looks to shoot the lights out. Their defense isn't great, but it's not terrible. It's average at best. Patrick Chambers, I'm not a big fan of his, but he's done a good job this year. Lamar Stevens is a really good inside shooter, and Myrion Jones is a really good outside shooter. They complement each other really, really well. All in all, I do expect Henry to step up tonight, and I'm going to go with the Spartans tonight, even though they're at Penn State. Give me MSU. Alright, it's time for this day in sports history. On this day, in 1872, Wee Willie Keeler was born. It's okay if you don't know who he is. He played over 110 years ago. That's perfectly fine. I don't begrudge you for not knowing him. But you really should. Did you ever wonder whose record Joe DiMaggio broke to get the record for the longest hit streak in MLB history? It was Keeler. And it was funny. No one knew about it until very later on in the streak. What happened was some historian looked it up and said, hey, look, there's this other record that DiMaggio needs to break. It's not whatever record we thought it was. I don't remember who they thought it was, but they didn't know about Keeler. Then some historian looked it up and said, hey, look, it's actually Keeler. And DiMaggio obviously broke Keeler's record. There are very few pure hitters in baseball history. Pete Rose is one of them. Derek Jeter's probably one of them. Ty Cobb is one of them. Ted Williams is one of them. Cap Anson. And Wee Willie Keeler. You never struck this guy out. He went more than 60 at-bats between individual strikeouts. He was one of the best contact hitters in baseball history. Ichiro Suzuki, too, is another one of those pure hitters. I just thought of him. I'm not going to go throughout his career, year by year, just because, records from back then are really spotty. And for most of his career, Major League Baseball didn't even exist. He played well before the American League was a thing. So instead, I just want to talk about how great of a hitter he was. Oh, Joe DiMaggio, too, was another one of those pure hitters. They're just going to start coming to me randomly now. You watch. I'm going to hit the pillow tonight, and it's going to be, oh, wait, player X also. Keeler was a great bunter also. He is the reason that bunting with 2 strikes now results in a strikeout. Because Keeler would constantly just bunt pitches away, and then finally he'd be able to lay one down and it would be a single. He also made great use of the Baltimore chop, which is where you hit a ball so high in the air off a bounce that by the time the fielder can grab it and throw, you're already at first base. He did all this despite the fact that he was built like a pencil. He was 5'4" and only 140 pounds. If I were to sit on him, I'd crush him. I mean, now he's probably all dust, but still, in his prime, if I were to sit on Keeler, forget about it. It's amazing how he was able to do all that while being a shrimp puff. I'm not trying to take anything away from Keeler. It just speaks to his dominance. That he was able to do all that while being so short. If I had to pick a modern-day equivalent to Wee Willie Keeler, it would probably be Jose Altuve. Probably. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good way of doing it. He had a remarkable ability for being able to place the ball exactly where the fielders weren't. His nickname, in addition to Wee Willie, was Hit 'em Where They Ain't. I'll end this day in sports history with this. Wee Willie Keeler is one of the only players in baseball history to hit over 400 in a season. In 1897, for the Baltimore Orioles, he hit 424. 424! To put that in perspective, Ted Williams only hit 406. I highly encourage you to go on baseballreference.com and look up Wee Willie Keeler's stats. He was incredible. Alright, now it's time for another Mount Rushmore. This one is really tough. Not because it was hard to come up with the four guys. It was actually kind of easy. But because it's the Boston Red Sox. How are you going to make the Yankee fan do the Mount Rushmore of Boston Red Sox? Oh man, I have to sing Ted Williams' virtues now? Or Carl Yastrzemski's virtues? Oh, come on. Look, the correct Mount Rushmore for the Red Sox really isn't up for debate, I don't think. It's Ted Williams, Carl Yastrzemski, Roger Clemens, and David Ortiz. You don't need me to tell you how dominant Ted Williams was. If you don't know, then shame on you. Alright, pick up a book and educate yourself. The guy hit 521 home runs, despite the fact that he lost 3 of his best years in World War II. He's the last player to hit over 400 in a season. You take a look at the back of his baseball card, there's so much bold type on it that your hand would run from all the ink. He's a former Triple Crown winner. He has the highest on-base percentage in baseball history. And he's probably the best player in baseball history to never win a World Series. Either him or Barry Bonds. It's really close. I don't know how you compare the two. That's the thing. Like, you can compare past hockey players to current hockey players. You can compare past basketball players to current basketball players. You can't do it for baseball. Carl Yastrzemski, the impossible dream. He won the Triple Crown that year. And the Red Sox came very close to ending the curse. They just couldn't beat the Cardinals. He spent his whole career with the Red Sox and had over 3,400 hits for him. Actually, it's kind of funny. I was listening to FAN once, and Mike Francesa was giving away Yankee Red Sox tickets. And one of the trivia questions was, who's the only player in Red Sox history to have over 3,000 hits for him? And immediately, without missing a beat, I said Carl Yastrzemski. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't on the other end of the phone, but the fact that some people really didn't know that, they were guessing guys like Jim Rice and Ted Williams? Come on. How do you not get Yaz? Shame on you. Roger Clemens is probably the most dominant pitcher in Red Sox history. You take a look at all the bold type he had as a Red Sox, it's scary. He won the MVP in 1986. You have any idea how hard that is to do as a pitcher? The last one to do it was Verlander. I remember watching Clemens pitch as a Yankee. I really liked Roger Clemens. I have very fond memories of him. I was actually at the game where Clemens was in George Steinbrenner's box, and he agreed to come back for part of the 2007 season. And the crowd just erupted into applause. It was really fun. And Susan Waldman's reaction was really funny. I like Susan Waldman. I gotta say that. I don't think she should do color commentary. I think she should be a sideline reporter. I think that's where she'd better fit. She could even do play-by-play. I don't think she'd be a bad play-by-play person. I just don't think she's a good color commentator. I think she's being misused. John Sterling I don't like, though. I will go out of my way not to listen to John Sterling. Like, if I'm in the car, I'll listen to the away feed, if I can, to avoid listening to John Sterling. Or the home feed, as the case may be. David Ortiz, Big Sloppy. Oh, wait, I meant Big Papi. I had a shirt that said Red Sucks, Big Sloppy, and then another one that said Red Sucks, Papal Bum. I can't tell you how many double takes I got, because I wore the Yankee hat and the shirt that if you looked really fast, it looked like a Red Sox shirt. You just had to read it to realize that it was an anti-Red Sox shirt. I will never forgive the Twins for letting Ortiz walk and him signing with the Red Sox. I don't know what the Twins didn't see in him. I understand that you may have wanted to keep the DH spot open, but for goodness sake, David Ortiz in his career hit 541 home runs. He hit 483 of them for the Red Sox. It's kind of interesting to think how different history would have been if Ortiz had stayed a Twin. Did the Yankees beat the Red Sox in 2004? Can they win one more game? Because realize Ortiz was MVP of that series. He had 387, 3 homers, 11 RBIs. Maybe the Twins are able to put up more of a fight against the Yankees in 2009. You gotta love alternative history, man. It's so much fun to speculate on stuff like that. Tomorrow, I'll be breaking down Michigan State versus Penn State, along with anything else that breaks in the world of sports. Until then, I am Jacob Valk saying that the main quality a great third base coach must have is to be a fast runner.